Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
Totally, yes.
It's an absolute riot.
Woo!
And the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays.
What deeply out of touch old person came up with that?
You did.
Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday. Now playing only in theaters. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Hello and welcome back to Baby Steps. I'm Jordana Abraham, and I'm joined once again by my big sister, clinical therapist, Dr. Naomi Bernstein, to introduce this week's episode.
All right. Happy to be here. So who did you have on the show this week?
So this week's episode, we feature Sarah Herron, who was on The Bachelor. I know we both watched this season. We were big fans of the show and her specifically. Do you remember Sean Lowe's season?
She was one of my favorites. First of all, Sean and Catherine live in Dallas. So I'm always like interested and I kind of keep tabs on what they're up to. So I love them as a couple, but I loved Sean's season. I hope she's over it. And
I think she's moved on from that.
She's moved on. But yeah,
it's been 12 years. Can you believe that?
It's crazy. Yeah. So hopefully she's moved on. But I loved her. I always thought she was such a sweetheart on the show. So I'm glad that you got a chance to talk to her. So what's going on with her?
Yeah, I mean, Sarah is someone who's overcome so much adversity in her life, and her pregnancy journey was no different. She told such a powerful story of, she struggled for a couple of years to get pregnant. She had diminished ovarian reserve and then had to do egg retrievals, and then, finally got through that phase. She got pregnant on her second transfer with her son, who she had to deliver at 24 weeks and did not make it.
Oh.
And just to hear her tell this story was just like such a powerful story about like overcoming and dealing with grief and really just like figuring out how to move on after such a terrible tragedy. She talks about the days and just like the weeks after having delivered her son, and just like, that whole grief process, figuring out how to move on. Eventually, she does do another transfer, and now she's pregnant with twin girls.
Currently at this very moment.
Yes. At the time of our interview, which was a few weeks ago, I think she was 22 weeks. So she's past the point of her last pregnancy, and I'm so happy for her. We talk about everything, including like becoming pregnant again after having dealt with this loss of like a baby that you felt so connected to. And then trying to stay connected in this new pregnancy while still honoring, the child from your last. And it's very, as someone who's gone through pregnancy loss, I think there's similarities, but there's obviously a lot of differences when a child makes it as far as her son did.
Mm-hmm.
So she really just talks about like, it's uncommon, but it's not that uncommon. I had spoken to Emily Oster, and apparently like 1 in 160 births are born in this way.
Wow.
Which is a really like horrible statistic, and you don't really hear that much about it. So I'm so thankful for her for sharing this journey with us, and just hearing her story, I think, is really inspirational. It's really hopeful, and she's just a great person to follow. She's so strong, and she's overcome so much, and she really can tell you like the concrete steps that it took her to be able to overcome something that was just really, really awful.
Yes. And I feel like just for the listeners to hear not only, a lot of the episodes, I'm sure there's a lot of details on what you have to do and the processes and kind of the more concrete aspects of fertility treatment. But to hear someone who's like, okay, and this is how I dealt with the emotional part of this journey. And I'm curious to hear kind of what she said she did. Not that there's any right or wrong way to grieve, but just whatever her way was is really interesting for the listeners to hear how to go through that. And then obviously being currently pregnant, I don't know if she spoke to that, but I'm sure once you experience a pregnancy loss, especially in that type of traumatic way, that there is some anxiety moving forward. Does she talk about kind of how she's currently doing emotionally with like fears or anxieties about her current pregnancy?
Yeah. And I think, I happened to speak to her at such a critical time in her pregnancy, which is when she was really like rounding the corner of when she had such issues with her last pregnancy. And I think to get to that point and just sort of like the issues that she was saying, and connecting before then, because you'd feel so afraid to connect to something for fear that you'll lose it. But it really is truly a story of hope. I hope it inspires a lot of listeners. And Sarah is really great at just telling the story. And I'm so thankful that she told it, because it is a really hard thing to relive. And you'll hear that and see that when you listen to the episode.
Totally. And I'm sure that she is like the poster child for resilience, just based on the little bit that I know of her from being on Sean's season. She just presented, she had a disability, but she just presented as so confident and but not cocky, like confident and kind. And so I'm sure that she's been working on her resilience for a long time. So as hard as it is for her, it seems like this was this was the journey that she was meant to be on. And I'm hoping that she has two beautiful, healthy girls very soon. And I can't wait to hear this.
Of course, yes. And I mean, anyone who's listening, just as a little warning, there is a little trigger warning if it's tough for you to hear a story about loss, especially at a later stage. Just want everyone to know that going into this, so that they're mentally, prepared, because it is an emotional story. And let's bring Sarah on right now. And we are back with a very special guest. I'm so excited to have her today. I was glued to my TV when you were on Sean Lowe's season of The Bachelor, and I've been following along ever since. Please welcome Sarah Herron.
Thank you. I know, 12 years ago, glued to our TV screens, right?
Was that 12 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know. Sorry to make you and anyone who remembers watching my season feel really old all of a sudden.
I feel like that was maybe one of the best seasons, and you were so great on it.
I would agree. Thank you. Yeah. And then, I mean, Paradise was like more recent, but yeah, Sean's season was 12 years ago, I think. I hope I'm not dating myself, but I think 12.
Yeah, I mean, I feel dated now too, because I'm like, oh my God, how old was I when I was watching?
I know.
So funny. So thank you so much for coming on.
Mhm.
I know you've been so public with your fertility journey, which has been so helpful for anyone going through it, myself included. I think it's so important to hear other people's stories. So I'm so excited to get to speak to you today, and I think the listeners are going to really benefit from hearing your story. So
Yeah.
I guess to kick it off, could you just tell me about go way back to like even thinking or deciding that you were thinking about having kids, like the very, very beginning, just to like take me through the whole journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, it all really started during before COVID lockdown, but I was with my partner at the time. His name's Dylan. And we had been together for about 2.5 years, I want to say. And we were just having so much fun, like traveling the world, adventuring, and I was learning so much from him. And we were just like, it'd be really great to like share this life with kids and grow our family. And so I just had this like awakening one day where I was like, I feel very sure that I want to have children. And I hadn't been sure up until that point. I was always like very on the fence, considered freezing my eggs, because I was just like, I don't know if the light bulb's going to go off for me. And then it did. And when it did, I was just very sure. So I went to Dylan, and we weren't even engaged yet, but I was like, I really want to have kids. I would like to have kids with you. Is that something you are into? And if not, like, I would love to know. And he was like, no, it sounds great. Sounds fun. Let's do it. And so
Amazing.
So it's kind of just like off to the races. And the timeline of our relationship has never been very traditional anyway. So we started trying to conceive before we were even engaged, well before we were married. And the very first step we took was we went and had it's called like a preconception appointment with my OBGYN. And
Okay.
I don't know where I got the idea to do that. I think she had just said at one point, like, when you're ready to start having kids, like come in for a preconception appointment. And
what did that entail? Yeah.
basically, I think the reason she probably suggested that was because at the time I was 33. And so she knew I was like kind of inching towards that age of, what do they call it? Like advanced maternal age now.
Geriatric pregnancy, as they call it.
pregnancy.
Yes. Very flattering term.
Yeah. So when we had this preconception meeting, basically it was very straightforward. It was just like an office visit where she says, you know, try for 6 months. If you guys don't have any luck, come back. We'll run some fertility tests. And it was just kind of basic, like giving you the rundown on how conception actually works, and that, there's actually really only a couple days out of the month when you can conceive. And so she told us some apps to download and to track my cycle. And I had already been off birth control for a couple years, so we didn't have to worry about that. And then she just said, yeah, if you don't have luck, come back. We'll talk in 6 to 7 months. So sure enough, 6 months went by, never got pregnant. However, my cycle was very regular because I was tracking in the app. I was doing all the ovulation test strips, everything. Everything should have been working like clockwork, but it wasn't. And then I started to have these like intuitions of just like, well, it is kind of odd that I've never been pregnant. Like never even had a scare, never even had a blip of, oh my gosh, my period's late, maybe I'm pregnant. Right. And so I was like, let's go back.
Had you been on birth control before that? Or
I had been on birth control, but not for a crazy amount of time. I mean, I started taking it, I think, towards the end of high school, like a lot of millennial women.
Same, yeah.
And but I came off of it pretty much as soon as I graduated college because I just didn't really like it. And truth be told, I wasn't in relationships. And so I was like, I don't really want to take this pill every single day with no reason.
Right.
So I came off. So yeah, I knew there wasn't like a hormone factor related to birth control that was messing things up. And so that's when I just started to feel like, well, that's kind of weird that I've never gotten pregnant, never even had a scare. So we went back in for the testing, and she basically was like, yeah, let's just run some basic fertility tests, hormone tests, test your AMH, your FSH,
right.
Get your follicle count, all the goods. And pretty much within like a week or so of getting all the results, she was like, yeah, you have diminished ovarian reserve, and conception is going to be really challenging for you. Basically said you can try to do some IUI treatments a couple times, but they're not very successful with people in your position. So your best bet would be to go straight to IVF. And that was like one heck of a call to get.
Yeah. I feel like anyone on this journey can kind of like remember that first moment where they're like, oh, this is not going to be just easy. This is like, I'm not, it's not going to happen the way you've always thought it was going to happen, which is like, surprise-ish. Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I definitely recall that for myself, but that must have been a tough thing to hear.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It was really hard. It wasn't what I was expecting at all. And certainly not to just be like handed some pamphlets of IVF doctors. I was expecting, there will at least be like some sort of intermediary treatment or plan that we can do before going straight to IVF, because my perception of IVF was just that like, this is what you do. This is like a last resort effort. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is not something that is going to happen to me. I'm not going to have to pursue that. So it seemed so far out of my own reality. It was just hard to grasp right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a mountain.
Yeah.
I think when it's first presented.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, why would I'm not one of the, like, that's fine. That's great for them, but why would I need to do that?
Right.
So I definitely had similar feelings, I think, going into that. So she recommends a fertility doctor, I assume.
Yeah.
Who's going to do that.
Yeah. So we got started right away with some consultations. I wanted to meet with like 3 different doctors just so we could get a range of different approaches, different bedside manners, see what was going to be the best fit for us. And so that was March when we found out about diminished ovarian reserve. And by May, I began my first IVF treatment.
Oh, wow. Okay. So pretty quickly.
Yeah. It was like, don't want to waste any time. We chose our amazing doctor, Dr. Amy Avazadeh, and we live in Colorado. She lives in California. So yeah, we just didn't really want to waste any time. We knew there was going to be like the added expense of travel and just even like, I think a lot of people have this perception that as soon as you start IVF, that's going to now immediately translate into baby, within the year.
Right.
And that's not the case. It's like from the minute you start IVF, it's now unpredictable. So I just like didn't want to waste any time, wanted to get started, and ultimately chose Dr. Amy for a multitude of reasons. But one was that we could just like be super proactive and get started.
Okay, I know we're not quite there yet, but fall is creeping up fast. We've had our fair share of horrible heat here in New York, so personally, I can't wait for the cooler weather. So if you're getting an early start and preparing your wardrobe for the months ahead, make sure you're shopping with Quince. I love Quince. I wore these amazing silk pants from Quince on the recording for this podcast. You could probably see it in the YouTube episode from a few weeks ago. I got so many people asking me in the comments, where did you get those pants? The answer is Quince. I didn't respond. You can hear it here first. It's such a high quality item. It looks great. It looks luxurious. It feels luxurious, and it's at an amazing price point. I can't wait for fall because I want to buy even more Quince items, and I can't wait to break out my cashmere sweaters from Quince, which are a little too hot to wear right now, but are so comfortable and so cute. Really, you just can't go wrong because they make such high quality stuff at a great price. Quince is pretty much everything. Think chic cashmere and cotton sweaters starting at just $40, washable silk tops, and classic denim pants. Timeless styles you can keep coming back to. The best part, everything with Quince is half the cost of similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middlemen, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. Elevate your fall wardrobe essentials with Quince. Go to quince.com/oversharing for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/oversharing to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/oversharing. Do you know what's really tough about getting into bed at night and turning out the lights? That's always the time when all of the stressful things from my whole day suddenly hit me all at once, and I can't stop thinking about them. Anything that I pushed off the day, any anxieties I had, suddenly creep back in. But there's something that can help me quiet all the noise, and I think it can help you too. Boll & Branch bedding will wrap you up in soft, cozy sheets so you can effortlessly drift off to sleep. Let me tell you about Boll & Branch. I put their Percal sheet set on my guest bed this weekend when I had my whole family over. And my brother, John, who's critical of pretty much everything, I can always count on him for a critical comment of whatever he's doing. He slept in these sheets, and I was waiting for him the next morning to see what he thought of the bed. And the only thing he said was, "I love those sheets in your bed. Where do I get them?" He said, "I love the color. The color was juniper." He said, "I love the feel. I had an amazing night's sleep." It was like the ultimate compliment for me in particular, but also for Boll & Branch. If my brother likes it, you guys are going to like it. Make sure you get a chance to try it. It's the Boll & Branch Percal sheet set. The color we got was juniper, which was really quite lovely. It's a really beautiful shade of green. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep can make with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/oversharing. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/oversharing to save 15% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. Can I ask, so at this time you're not engaged yet?
No.
Was there like discussion around, okay, we are going to make these embryos and like what happens if it doesn't work out? Like, did you want to do some eggs on your own without him? Like, what was your thought process there?
Great question. The first conversation was, do you still want to stay together? Because my biggest self-deprecating feeling was, he's going to want to leave now that he knows it's going to be challenging and expensive to have kids with me. And it's not just going to be quick and easy. Like, does he want to even stay? Is this something he wants to pursue? And, I have like a lot of abandonment issues. And so that's That's why my brain went there. But we had that conversation and he was like, no, I'm like, of course I'm in this with you and we're going to do it together. So then there was never really a question of like, is it weird to be making embryos with someone that I'm not engaged to yet? It just like Dylan and I have always felt like we just know we're together forever. But I did consider like, should I freeze some eggs for like reassurance, insurance reasons, I guess. But
Right.
really the reality is I just didn't really yield enough eggs to do that.
Okay.
So we chose not to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. And I think that's another, that's something people think about when they're going through it too. It's like, because they say that the embryos are much more viable than like the
Yeah.
eggs, or they're less fragile. I don't know what the correct technical term is, but
Yeah.
so it does seem like, I don't know, you'd have to like be a little bit in my mind, even doing it married. I think my thought was, I'd have to have real doubts to
Mhm.
like not want to put it
Yeah.
towards the embryos, but I can understand why people do also. It seems like
Yeah.
a very safe
Totally.
practice,
Totally. And I
yeah.
think like no one should quote me on this because I obviously I'm not like the egg freezing expert, but I think typically they want to bank around like 20 eggs when you freeze your eggs. And we were nowhere near that if we want, because with embryos, they say you want to have about 3 embryos per successful pregnancy.
Right.
So we just were like we just didn't have the kind of numbers to have the option to do both.
Okay. So you do this round of egg freezing.
Yeah. So we did our first egg retrieval and it was like shockingly successful, I think, in terms of the attrition rate. Oh gosh, I should back up and mention that like when we had started the whole egg retrieval process, we found out along the way that Dylan and I are both carriers for a genetic disorder. So that also now
The same one.
the same one. Yeah, we're both
Oh, wow.
carriers, which is extremely rare, not unheard of, but rare. And so that now added further complications to our embryo creation because it meant 1 in 4 of our embryos would be affected by this genetic disease. So we're like, okay, great. But I guess maybe that's like a blessing in disguise, like why we're here, so that we don't pass on this disease. And so when we did our first egg retrieval, it was, as good as we could have hoped for. We were able to yield a good amount of embryos from the eggs collected, and like half of them came back unaffected. So we were like, great, this is like a great turnout. And we felt confident enough. I think we had 3 embryos. So we're like, okay, if she says 3 for 1 live birth, let's go forward. Right. And we moved forward with our first embryo transfer by like that subsequent November. So it did all move pretty quickly in that first year.
Right. How long after the retrieval did you do the transfer?
Let's see. The retrieval was in May, and then I did my transfer in end of October. And then I knew by November that it was not successful.
Was it just a negative or was it?
It was a chemical pregnancy, which means there was implantation. So when I went in for the first beta HCG test, there was HCG serum in my blood, but not enough to sustain the pregnancy. So this was, in my eyes, obviously devastating because you get the first test and you're like, oh gosh, I'm pregnant. Like,
right. All my problems are
yeah.
over. And I've had that feeling.
Yeah. And then they're like, come back in 2 days and we'll repeat the test because we want to see that levels are rising. And and then they, of course, dropped and I lost the pregnancy completely. So it gave me some reassurance because I was like, wow, that's the first time I've been able to like actually be pregnant. This is a great sign. It shows that my uterus is capable of receiving the embryos. And so for me, as devastating as it was and as crushing as it was still really like hopeful in a weird way.
Right.
And just kind of felt like, okay, well, this is a huge setback because now we have to figure out plan B, but I'm grateful that I know I can get pregnant.
Right. I'm sure that was reassuring. And what did the doctors, what did they give you a reason why they thought it might be chemical?
There's no real reason. Just because you create a euploid embryo, which means genetically or chromosomally normal embryo, doesn't guarantee that it will implant. That's the other thing. Another big misconception I think people have about embryo creation and genetic testing is that just because you have an embryo doesn't mean it will work. And
Right.
even if like everything's perfect, your uterine lining is perfect, the embryo is perfect, it's still just like one of those things. It's up to biology. It's everything has to be perfectly aligned in order for it to work. And there's no real reason of why an embryo won't stick, as far as I
Right.
know. So it was nothing I did wrong. It was nothing wrong with the embryo. It was just we were kind of on the wrong side of statistics on that one.
Right. Just unlucky. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you do another one, I assume.
So then we were down to 2, and Dr. Amy's recommendation was she suspected, well, not suspected, but she was like, I want to make sure you don't have endometriosis, and I want to rule out that could have been a potential reason the embryo was not able to stick. So she was like, a couple things. I think we should do another egg retrieval and create more embryos. And then I think we should do exploratory, like a laparoscopy to rule out endometriosis. So that kind of is where things really, like the timeline started to slow down, because now we're talking about I had to schedule with a completely different surgeon to have endometriosis laparoscopic excision, which is a mouthful. Turned out I didn't really have any endometriosis, so we could kind of take that off the table. There was a little bit found on my ovaries, which could have suggested the reason for diminished ovarian reserve, but it had nothing to do with my uterus or my uterine lining. And then we
Had you had any symptoms of endometriosis?
No, I've never had any symptoms. The reason we went forward with the laparoscopy was because there's kind of like a diagnostic test you can take that will tell you if you are showing, like they take a biopsy essentially from your uterus and they test that, and from the results of that they can say there's indication that there might be endometriosis, but truly the only way to diagnose is going in for a laparoscopy. Doctors have to actually be able to see it. So yeah.
But the biopsy showed that maybe that it was potentially that it was an issue.
Yes. For anyone listening who's familiar, the score when you do this test, it's like you're between a 1 and a 6, 6 being you have very strong, like highly likelihood of endometriosis, 1 being 0 or being unlikely, and I was a 2. So it wasn't like you don't have endometriosis, but it wasn't super, super concerning. But Dr. Amy, what I love about her is she just likes to rule everything out. She's like, I would rather rule things out now than like be chasing this forever and you spending money on IVF after IVF when we could cross a lot of things off on our checklist.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go in and it shows that's not really the issue.
Right.
Seems like.
Right. However, there's like some opinions out there that say after you have a type of procedure like that, it kind of like refreshes the uterus and makes it a little bit more receptive, because essentially they're like scraping out any tissue that could have endometriosis in it. So this was in July, and then we were kind of all over the place here now, but I did have another embryo transfer after that, and I do think it helped with the implantation.
Okay.
Yeah. So but to back up, I did go forward with 2 more egg retrievals per her recommendation, because the first one was a complete bust. And so that was like, you go from the first one, which was like, that was amazing, we got a decent amount of eggs, and it turned into 50% embryo attrition. And then the next round was nothing, like complete bust.
Right. And I think that's another misconception about IVF is that like, I don't think people realize how common it is for people to get no embryos.
Right.
I think that's something I've heard from so many people. And I think most people think I mean, the idea behind IVF seems to me to like give you a sense of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you've done it or once you're in it, you realize you're actually like not really that in control.
Exactly. So that was shocking and devastating for everyone. And Dr. Amy was basically like, I think we should do another one. Like, let's just go straight into it back to back, because they say also like the way ovaries produce eggs is it's not like bookended. It's not just here's a batch 1 month, here's a batch the next month. It's kind of like a wave. So you can catch eggs that were created like at the beginning of one cycle and then they're more mature by the next cycle, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the reason we went straight into another retrieval was because she was like, those eggs that weren't mature enough for the last cycle will be mature enough now, and they've been going through all the stimulation. And so there's sometimes some increased results if you do back to back.
I didn't even know that, but that's helpful for anyone listening.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's pretty physically demanding on your body to do 2 back to back, but if you feel okay, and if you're, I think, someone who's a little bit more of a low responder to IVF stimulation, it's good. If you're a high responder, if you're someone with PCOS, or if you yield a lot of eggs, probably not good for you because you're at higher risk for ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. And so you don't want to do back-to-back for that reason.
Right. So was the second
so then
consecutive
the second one,
retrieval?
So that was successful. And we got 2 or 3 more embryos. So then we were like, okay, we want to be done with egg retrievals. I don't want to do those anymore. Let's move forward with the laparoscopic excision and then the transfer immediately following. So we moved forward, did the surgery, did the transfer in August, and then that was successful. And I got pregnant with my son, Oliver. So we finally had a successful pregnancy. It was great. And just like, wow, okay, it just seemed too good to be true. Like it worked right. Like a charm. Yeah. And obviously things took a turn.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. You know that feeling when you're just trying to feel better, less anxious, more balanced, and suddenly your entire feed is yelling at you to take a cold plunge, start a gratitude journal, and delete Instagram forever? Yeah, same. There's so much advice out there, it's hard to know what actually works. That's why I think it's so important to have real, trusted support. Talking to a licensed therapist, like the ones on BetterHelp, cuts through the noise and gives you the tools that are actually tailored to you. You really can put a price on positive mental health. Therapy has changed my life. I've been going for, I think, over 10 years now. And I have to say, I would be a totally different person without it. It has helped me improve all aspects of my life, from my career to my relationships, really anything. I can't recommend it enough. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, you should give BetterHelp a try. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online platform, having served over 5 million people globally. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. Plus, switch therapists at any time to find your perfect fit. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/overshare. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/overshare. You know those moments when your hands are full or your eyes need a break, but you still want to escape into a great story? That's why I'm such a fan of Audible. I listen all the time, whether I'm on a walk, commuting to the office, doing chores, or even just relaxing before bed. Audible's app makes it super easy to jump right into thousands of audiobooks anytime, anywhere. I've mentioned before that one of my favorite movies is Pride and Prejudice, and I'm excited that Audible is releasing a brand new audiobook version of the Jane Austen novel on September 9th. Narrated by Marissa Abela, Harris Dickinson, Glenn Close, and other stars you know and love. Audible gives me the best of both worlds. I can enjoy a story I love while actually getting stuff done. They have thousands of titles, everything from romance to thrillers to memoirs, comedy, and even self-improvement. So whatever mood you're in, there's always something fresh and exciting waiting for you. And the app is super user-friendly. You can download audiobooks to listen offline, adjust the narration speed, and pick up right where you left off across all your devices. If you've never tried Audible before, I can't recommend it enough. It's the easiest way to bring incredible stories into your everyday life. Trust me, once you start listening, you'll wonder how you ever went without it. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/oversharing. up until things took a turn, were there any signs of
No,
something was wrong?
No, I had a great, I was really sick, but I had a wonderful, normal, uneventful pregnancy with Oliver. And unfortunately, we just lost him. So it was a late term loss that we just didn't anticipate coming. And the things that no pregnant woman ever wants to consider happening, rightfully so, does happen to a lot of women. And it's just not something you ever anticipate. Like myself included, I always was just like, don't think about it, don't look at it, don't look at content about that because maybe superstitiously it'll happen to you. and then it did. And I felt like, yeah, just like no one prepares you for that, so late in your pregnancy.
Yeah. And I mean, you have a name, you have
Mhm.
I'm sure a very intense connection. How did you even go about grieving and dealing with that, with what happened?
Well, we got started working with a grief counselor immediately. Like, one, I will just say, like, the hospital came together to support us. Like, they offered us so many resources. They put us in touch with a nonprofit organization that provides support and resources. And they took care of funeral arrangements and all the things that no 23-week pregnant woman ever thinks about needing to do. And then that allowed us to just focus on getting into grief counseling and working with my therapist. So, you go into an immediate bereavement period. We both took off work. Physically, my body went through postpartum because I was far enough along in pregnancy that I still experienced all the postpartum symptoms of pregnancy, I guess. Like my
Right.
milk
Yeah.
came in,
Lactating. Yeah.
and that's another thing. Like you never think about that happening. You know, like why would
course
you?
not, yeah.
You don't have. I didn't even have a breast pump yet. So how am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do? And thankfully, I just had friends that came together. They gave me their breastfeeding and pumping and postpartum supplies, and they stocked my fridge, and they just did everything for me so that we could just focus on physically and emotionally healing. So like I said, we got started in grief counseling right away, and kind of just went through the motions for the first 6 weeks. Were pretty just a blur in
Right.
blackout phase.
Well, I can't imagine what that must have been like. I mean, it sounds like having the support system or people rallying around you was kind of to me, it seems like a pivotal part of what got you through that.
100%. And I mean, I'll say everyone came together and put a meal train together. So we just had hot meals that were getting dropped off to us every day. And we watched a lot of The Office. Just you're just numb, so you're you can't watch anything. So you're just put something on to distract me visually and kind of try and make me laugh. And yeah, other than that, I truthfully just don't really remember a whole lot for those first few weeks.
Right.
It's pretty wild. And then I slowly got into spirituality and healing, and I went on a yoga retreat and just started connecting with more women who had been through late-term pregnancy loss, and it just significantly helped to be able to connect with people who'd been through it.
Totally. I think, that's one of the goals of this show itself is just because it can feel, because, a lot of people have a miscarriage or, maybe have trouble having a baby. But I think that it's really hard to find people who understand your specific point of grief and pain, because it's every infertility story is kind of unique and dealing with it in whatever stage or capacity it's at. And like you were saying, even finding it wasn't, I'm sure you could relate to someone who's had a miscarriage, but to relate to someone who's had a late term 20 plus weeks miscarriage is probably a whole new level of feeling understood or connected, I would imagine.
Yeah. And you are just like, at least me, I'm in such a, like, I connect with people. I need connection. And so I was in this phase of like, people would be like, I can put you in touch with my friend Katie, or like, I'm making names up, but
Mhm.
I was just so desperate to talk to someone else who could relate and who'd been through it that I was having like Zoom calls with total strangers. I was talking on the phone with total strangers just to feel like we weren't in it alone. And that would be a word of, advice to anyone who's listening. If you have been through something like this, or if it happens to you, God forbid, you don't have to go through it alone. And I would say like the first important thing to do is to get grief counseling and to connect with a woman who's been through it. Because even if you don't know someone personally, someone knows. So like if you can have the courage to talk to a best friend and say, do you know anyone who's lost someone late or a baby late? Just put the feelers out and try and connect with someone. And then as far as that grief counseling goes, it's really important you work with someone who specializes in grief and loss. I've heard it's just like a different type of support than
A regular therapist,
regular
like
therapist.
just like a general
Yeah.
psychologist.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it really takes someone who can like hold the space for you as long as it needs to be held, rather than trying to like coach you out of the grief and make it better. It's like you just need someone to walk with you through that grief.
That's a great tip for anyone who's listening. And again, I don't think people realize, like when you said a friend of a friend or something like that. I just had Emily Oster on the show,
Mhm.
and she was saying how I think in her new book she talks about pregnancy complications, and she was saying actually like 1 in 160 births is
Mhm.
a stillbirth or a
Mhm.
late term pregnancy loss. And
Yeah.
to really, like, you will, like, if you don't know someone will know someone.
Mhm.
I think that's such an important step, to just ask for help.
Yeah. I love that you got to chat with her. She's like my favorite. I subscribe to her Substack. She's great. So, I'm really looking forward to her book. I know it was announced like right after I lost Oliver, and I was like, why can't this be out like right now? So I think it comes out today, doesn't it?
It'll be out by the time this podcast
Okay.
airs. So anyone who's listening,
Yeah.
definitely check it out. She goes through like so many different pregnancy complications that you could have, and gives you a roadmap for if how to start again if you've dealt with
Mhm.
this kind of thing, if you're looking for another to begin like your second pregnancy journey or an additional pregnancy journey. So shout out to that. But again, we've had her on also. So at what point did you feel like, okay, I think I can get back out there?
Yeah. Well, I'm so curious to hear what Emily said about that. But I think women will have two different responses. There's either the I need to get pregnant again immediately to like fix my grief, which is fine. Like that is a perfectly acceptable healing journey. And then the second path is like I can't fathom getting pregnant again for a long time. And so for me, I was a little bit more of the latter. I was just like, I felt so connected to Oliver. I felt so just like in it with him still. I couldn't even imagine the idea of getting pregnant again. I didn't want to just like erase him or replace him. Um, and so we waited 6 months. And then I felt like I was ready to go through with another embryo transfer. And we did 6 months later, and it was not successful. I didn't even have implantation. And so that just like stirred up grief and trauma in me that I realized like I wasn't ready. I wasn't like emotionally strong enough yet. So hindsight's always 2020,
Right.
right? Like how could I have known? I thought I was ready, and then it just was like, eek, like no, I'm not. And so we waited a couple more months, and we took a vacation, and we rafted the Grand Canyon, and Dylan and I decided at this point to elope. So we got
Oh,
married
wow.
on the trip. And then we said, okay, we'll come home and do another transfer. So at that point, we were like, it's our last embryo. We'll put it in, see what happens. Put it in October.
Was there pressure on this? Would you feel like, or?
That's a good question. I think by this point, we were still feeling like hopeful, but definitely starting to fatigue. Like your shell gets hardened. You're like, I don't know if I really want to go through this multiple times, but we have the embryos, so let's do it.
Right.
So in October, we did another transfer, did not take again. Again, no implantation. And at this point, we're like, what the hell? Like now we're not even getting any implantation. So we had to have a real like reset of, do we want to keep chasing this forever? Or is it time to start imagining a child-free life? And I was definitely drawing to that point of just like, I don't know if I can emotionally keep doing this to myself. Like it's so painful. It's so devastating. It's so expensive every single time. Like it's consumed my life for the last 3 years.
Right.
I kind of just like want my life back. I want to stop obsessing about IVF. And so we actually had 2 more embryos frozen that are mosaic embryos. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Okay.
I have some of those as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Where they're like, you're not really sure.
Yes.
They're inconclusive, basically, right? Sort of.
Yes. So what it means is when they went off for their chromosomal testing, they came back not euploid, so meaning they're not perfectly chromosomally perfect, but they're not abnormal. So they're kind of like this in between. There's a great podcast actually on Dr. Amy's podcast where they talk about this. It's kind of like, imagine the embryo as a soccer ball, and the white patches on a soccer ball mean that they're like chromosomally normal, and the black patches mean that they're abnormal. So we had 2 of these embryos that are like soccer balls. It doesn't mean they won't work. It doesn't mean they will work. They're just, like you said, a little inconclusive, but there's growing popularity in transferring them now, because what can happen is the white patches, the good cells, will actually push out the bad cells as
Right.
as the embryo continues to like multiply and divide.
I've seen that. I've seen there's been a lot of studies about transferring mosaic embryos,
Yeah.
and they are very likely to turn out okay.
Yes.
You know that feeling when you find jeans that actually fit your body? No awkward gap in the waist, no bunching up, and they fit every curve in the best way? Abercrombie knows denim, and they know how it should feel. Abercrombie's viral denim sale is back with 30 to 50% off all jeans. See what all the hype is about and give your denim collection an upgrade before it's over. Valid in stores and online through August 11th, 2025 in the US and Canada. Excludes clearance. Price reflects discount. Use code AFBetches to get an additional 15% off almost everything at checkout from August 6th to August 11th, 2025. Offer valid in the US and Canada. Exclusions apply. See details online. All of Abercrombie's women's jeans are available in 2 fits. First, the classic fit you know and love with a straighter line from waist to hip. They're also available in Curve Love, the viral fit with additional room through the hip and thigh to eliminate waist gap. No matter what you're working with, Abercrombie has a flattering fit for you. I love Abercrombie denim. They're super affordable for the quality that you're getting, and they have such an amazing range of options. Denim should feel like this, confident, easy, like your butt has never looked better. Shop Abercrombie denim in the app, online, and in-store. Don't you just love summer? The nights are hot, the days are long, and the possibilities are endless. Beach days, park picnics, or just laying in front of your AC and hiding from the sun. No matter what kind of summer you're having, Truly helps you get the vibe right. As far as flavors go, they have so many great ones to choose from. Classic faves like Citrus Squeeze and Wild Berry, or the higher ABV Truly Unruly if you feel like kicking it up a notch. Or get a mix pack so there's something for everyone. The ideal summer beverage should taste great, be light on sugar, and not make you feel gross in the middle of a 90-degree day. Truly checks all the boxes. 100 calories, 1 gram of sugar, and totally delicious. Just crack one open and you're already in weekend mode. They're perfect for day drinking without the mid-afternoon crash or regrets, and the 5% ABV is just right when you want to sip all day, but still make it to that dinner reservation. I would say I love a good Truly right by the pool. It's delicious. It's light, goes down easy. It's nice to just like have one. You know, you're having like a low calorie, light drink. I've been really into the strawberry lemonade lately, but honestly, all their flavors are amazing. You really can't go wrong. We know you'll be bringing great vibes this summer. Just make sure someone brings the Truly. You can find Truly in most stores near you or visit trulyhardseltzer.com to use their handy product finder. That's trulyhardseltzer.com.
So I joined this Facebook group that was all about like mosaic embryos because I wanted to learn everything. And up until this point, I mean, I will admit I was totally naive. I just kind of thought they were discardable. I didn't really consider them as like viable embryos.
That's sort of how they present them to you, I think.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, well, if like every single thing doesn't work, else doesn't work, like you can give these a shot. I feel like that's and maybe wrongly, again, from all the research that I've seen on them.
Right. Well, and what I'm learning is a lot of clinics, they pride themselves on their results. So they don't want to take the hit on their success rates if they transfer an embryo that is less likely to succeed. So a lot of clinics are not really proponents of mosaics quite yet, but it's changing. And as like the research and the studies are improving and we're seeing more and more success rates, I think more clinics and more doctors are warming up to it.
Right.
So, yeah, Dr. Amy was like, you have these two mosaics. Like, I really want you to consider them as good as euploid embryos. And we were like, okay, I guess let's transfer them. And again, I was just at that place of fatigue where I was like, if we're going to transfer them, I want to transfer both at the same time. I'm over this. I don't want to do any more transfers. I am like, this is my last shot.
And they let you do that? Or was there pushback on that or no?
Dr. Amy understood. Like she was just like, I get it, and I'll do whatever you want. So if you want to transfer two, let's transfer two. And then we kind of had like a little bit of cold feet going into it and just got this like wild hair. And we were like, let's do another egg retrieval too, because what if these two, I don't know. It was just like you get to the end of where you said your threshold was and you start to freak out. And so I was like, I want to do another egg retrieval and then we're going to transfer these two embryos in and then we're done. So we liked this strategy also because it was a completely new transfer protocol. So essentially, up until now, all of my transfer protocols had been medicated transfers, which most people listening are familiar with. A lot of people also do like modified natural transfers. I had never done that. So in this protocol, what we did was ovarian stimulation, did an egg retrieval, and then 5 days later, we transferred the two embryos in. So this would be like a fresh embryo transfer if you were someone that was opting out of genetic testing and chromosomal testing.
It wasn't fresh from this retrieval. It was a previous retrieval's fresh transfer.
Correct. So it's called a fresh transfer with frozen embryos. Super complicated. I hope everyone who's listening is like following along still, because it gets in the weeds for sure. But so this was a fresh transfer with frozen embryos. The egg retrieval was good. It was pretty much on par with my other successful egg retrievals. I think we got 2 embryos out of it. And then we transferred these 2 mosaics and they both stuck. And I am now pregnant with twins from mosaic embryos.
Congratulations. I mean, how far along are you?
So I'm 23 weeks. Right where we lost Oliver. And it's very bittersweet. It's just hard to believe. It's so many emotions. Like, I don't know, kind of just like I pinched myself every day of like, how are we here? How did this happen? How am I pregnant with twins?
Like, is there anything that you do to sort of like hold that space for Oliver while, being really excited for this pregnancy as well?
It's interesting. I was actually just talking about that in therapy this week because, as I said, I got pretty spiritual, after my loss and felt very connected to his spirit. And I was going to a lot of Reiki and seeing a lot of mediums and spirit baby mediums. And I always felt really, really like he was close. And in this pregnancy, I feel sometimes like his spirit is a little further, or I feel like he has gone on to his spirit's next chapter. And I think that like that is beautiful and okay, because I do feel like he's supporting me and these girls, they're twin girls. And I do believe like he's watching over us and he's our angel, and he has given me the easiest pregnancy with them, and they're healthy and growing. And so I feel that connection, but I feel like from a spiritual standpoint, I'm like he's on, like he is moving on. And I know he checks in on us and I know he's with us every day, but I think he like needed to give me space so that I didn't feel so the grief wasn't so heavy in my pregnancy.
That's amazing. Have you read that book, Spirit Babies?
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I read that too. It's very puts me a little bit more at peace or at ease. And
Yeah. You know what's weird about that is I can get really woo-woo on all of this, but
you kind of become a little bit more woo-woo. I feel like the longer you're in this, the more you're like, I need something to hold on to.
Yeah, you do. You need
know?
something to like believe in and to latch onto when you're in times of when it's difficult. And so the interesting thing about the Spirit Babies book was I actually downloaded it to listen the week before we lost Oliver, because I didn't really know what it was about, but I was like, oh, I thought it was like teaching you how to like communicate with your baby in womb. And so I was like, I'm going to download this book and listen to it. And I listened to like the first chapter and I was like, oh, this is like for more targeted for people trying to conceive, to like call your spirit baby in. So I stopped listening to it. And then the very next week we lost Oliver. And I immediately finished the book in one sitting. And I do think that that was, in a weird way, like his intervention of like, just connecting me somehow to some resources. So yeah, I got a little woo-woo.
No, I get it. I have a Reiki person as well.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. And it, you're kind of like, can hurt.
Yeah.
And it helps mentally, I think, a lot of the time to feel like something is there for a higher purpose or there's some sort of plan, or, at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to have these girls and like, that's, who, like, would they be here if not for everything else that you've been through?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely like pregnancy after loss, and certainly pregnancy after late term losses. Not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's a very, very tough journey. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel you go through waves of like, I didn't feel connected to these girls for a very long time. It's like, it's not Oliver. I just want my pregnancy with Oliver back. It's very hard to feel excited sometimes, especially in those early days when you don't feel them moving yet. It's a head game for sure. And so anyone who is experiencing pregnancy after loss, again, I recommend you get connected with a support group or someone else who's been through it, because it just sets you apart. Like, you don't experience pregnancy the way a first-time pregnancy woman experiences it. It's just, it requires a different level of delicacy and permission, honestly, like just permission that it's okay if you're not excited. It doesn't make you a bad mom, doesn't mean you're less connected to your babies. Like, there's just things that first-time pregnant women won't be able to relate to you on.
And when are you due?
Due August 7th.
Amazing. I'll be following along. And I'm so happy for you and I'm so excited for you. And is there a sense of like, after having gone through all of these things, like when I have it, like I'll appreciate it more, like a thought of that, or like a feeling of like, because I'm sure a lot of people would be like a little intimidated by the thought of twins. But is there something that feels like a little bit more okay about that, knowing that, how hard it was to get them?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to lie. When you transfer 2 embryos in, you sign off on all this paperwork that's like, Are you sure? Like there is a higher risk of of multiples when you do IVF alone. So now you're like really increasing your chance of multiples. Are you sure you're okay with this? And that's why a lot of clinics don't want to transfer more than one embryo. And so, but I was just like, they're not both going to stick. There's no way they're both going to stick.
Right.
And so when we found out it was twins, of course you're like, well, I knew it was possible, but I did not think it was going to happen. And I would say for like the whole first trimester, I was like, oh shit, like what did we do? This is going to be so expensive. Our life is over. I mean, I was a little doom and gloom. Like I was like, what did I get myself into? This is, I don't know. I was just being like flippant. And now here we are expecting twins. And Dylan, bless him, is so amazing. He's like, our life isn't over. Like it's just starting. It's going to be amazing. And it's going to be the biggest adventure of our lives. And we're going to figure it out. And things will look different, but it's going to be our story. And just before getting on this call, I was actually looking at a photo of him and I early in our relationship. And I was like, who would have ever thought that this is going to be our journey? And who would have ever thought in the future we were going to have twin daughters? Like it's just mind blowing every day. So anyone who gets pregnant with twins, it's normal to feel that way at first. It does go away. And now I'm just like, I can't imagine it any other way. I'm so excited for these girls.
Just before we go, is there any sort of words of encouragement you have for anyone out there who's going through it, one way or another, just like not sure where the end of the tunnel is?
Yeah. Gosh, I could write a book on words of encouragement for whoever you are and whatever your situation is. But I guess my best advice is to surround yourself with community. Like really, I mean this, like plug into a support group, plug into a few different people you can connect with. You don't even have to know them in real life. Like just have someone that you can talk to, and then in terms of figuring out how long am I going to do this? Like when do I break up with IVF? When do I break up with trying to conceive? That's a real juncture a lot of us face. And I think the less we can get scared of that junction in the road and like actually start to visualize it and see it as like a beautiful extension of just a different direction, it just makes the next steps a little bit easier.
Just to clarify what you mean by that, are you kind of saying like if you can visualize a life that comes out in a different way than the way that you had planned and sort of wrap your head around that, then it makes the whole experience different? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You're
That's sort of how that's how I'm interpreting it. Is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean like child-free or adoption but there's so many options, right? Like there's embryo adoption, there's egg donor, there's donor conception, there's child-free life. Like there are other ways to imagine like deviation from the very first idea you had. And as soon as you can like start to either, I think like intake content around that idea really starts to help with your own grieving process through IVF, because it can just feel grating. It can just feel like this is never going to work out for me. I'm doomed. I'm going to turn into this like lonely old lady. But like there's so many people out there who are demonstrating the different possibilities. So if you can get familiar and just warm up to different ideas of expanding your family and your life, it really makes the process a little bit easier.
Totally. I think an open mind is sort of like the only way to survive.
Yeah.
So totally agree with that. And thank you so much for coming on, Sarah. It was such an amazing, powerful story. And I'll be following along and excited for you.
Thank you. I know it was a roller coaster for anyone listening. There's love, there's loss, but thank you for letting me share. I am an oversharer. So I appreciate
this is the place for you.
Yeah. So I appreciate the platform.
Awesome. And we'll be back next time on Baby Steps. Baby Steps is produced by me, Jordana Abraham, and Shannon Sassone. Editing by Jorge Morales-Pico. Guest booking by Ali Friedlander. And be sure to follow at Everything's Fine on Instagram.
Betches.